I'm always a big proponent when it comes to these conversations that mental performance, sports psychology is always going to be kind of that human to human interaction,
Mhm.
regardless of, whether that's a phone call, whether that's Zoom, in person, you name it. There's always got to be that human touch to it. But what I've seen kind of in the healthcare space now and seeing going into the future is you start to see the implementation of whether it's AI, certain technology that they're trying to add to it to make things better, faster, whatever you want to call it there. How do you really see kind of the mental performance space evolving over time, especially with the addition of certain technology gains and advancements within the coming years?
I think immediately I always go to accessibility. And then when I think of accessibility, I go to apps. Apps are, I mean, technology has already been running the world for a while. So technology is where we're going. And then obviously AI, so many different components with that. But having the ability to reach student athletes, I think is a huge win when it comes to where do we see ourselves in like 5 years, 2 years, 3 years. Having the ability to reach out to athletes within an app where we can schedule not just times to meet or check in, but really give them like a training plan on their phone or their computer. And them being able to check things off when they can. Obviously, around school, I think that's the whole accessibility part of it is they can still do training, mental performance training, or however, like whatever resources on there, well, on the platform within like the training plan. So I'm thinking not just like the app, but also how many different mental wellness resource people can kind of come together and create like a whole wellness plan within it, if that makes sense. So we could have a mental performance coach on there, we can have a counselor, we can have a strength and conditioning coach, and everyone kind of gets access for the most part to the parts that are public and obviously not under like HIPAA or the parts that are non-confidential versus like their own portals being the confidential pieces that they have interactions with each professional. But yeah, that's kind of where I see it is just the training plans, being able to have the option to like access that between classes, between sports, on their free time, in the transitions, just any way they can without having to take time to go somewhere to meet up, which again, such a benefit and also why I think it's nice to have face-to-face interaction, but telehealth has definitely grown since COVID. So that's where it's going, and I don't want to hinder that. I want to continue moving in that direction to help athletes in whatever capability that we can and whatever way that we can access them.
I completely agree. I think accessibility is the biggest driver for kind of that potential increase in helping even more student athletes in the future. Looking back at my time being a student athlete and even having conversations now with current and former ones, it was like, Josh, like I know I only have 24 hours in a day, but I wish I had 30 plus because I feel like I can't even juggle or maintain or balance anything. And obviously you need sleep, you need, to do all your work and, show up different areas of your life. And half the time it's like we feel like we have maybe 5 or 10 minutes to ourselves to maybe potentially work on something on the mental performance side, but yet half the time the only option that we're dealt with is, well, you got to go in person to see somebody, and you're like, well, I can't do that, I don't have the hour, the 45 minutes, so definitely not going to do that, and you kind of put it on the back burner. So like
There's
to your
free
point,
time.
right, exactly, so that accessibility point is super super huge. And kind of going to some of our last questions here, and it somewhat regarding to people who are aspiring to kind of go either in the mental performance route or even the sports psychology route as well. I know when I was in school, I would have loved to have heard some, different people talk about, hey, how they got the job that they had, right? Not
Mm,
necessarily a complete detailed list or a dissertation on stuff, but at least, hey, what were they doing to actively, reach out to people, and what were the steps like in the process, and what kind of, initiated some of those conversations. But for you, Kelsey, what were some of those things that you would give as feedback to yourself 5, 10, 15, how many ever years ago, right? When you're
mhm.
first starting to think about this career that you wish you knew then that you know now.
So I am pulling it from my expertise in photography. I feel like I learned a lot about networking, and I wish I would have really followed up on that with sports psych like I'm doing now. So just the importance of networking, the importance of making sure that you make connections, because you never know at what point in an event that you are speaking with someone that they might know someone, or maybe not them, but someone else, or they themselves, or are someone that can benefit you in some way, or even not just benefit you, but be an open ear to listening to things, to connecting you in some way to something or a resource that you never may have thought would have happened. So networking, keeping your lines of connection open, never burning bridges, no matter what challenges are going on, unless obviously it's a toxic thing, like a situation, you definitely want to just not go there. But I'd say networking is a big thing, and reaching out to people, doing it scared. I hear that a lot, like that common thing is just do it scared. Do it until you're not scared anymore or afraid. So, not only reaching out to people and networking, but figuring out how to put yourself out there so you can continually talk in front of people, because public speaking is not always the most fun. And I used to tell myself in my program, you have to continue saying yes to those public speaking options, so that at that point you can do it like like it's easy to do. It's automatic to do is what I was going to say. And public speaking has just, it'll eventually come to the point where it's not as scary as you think, but the nice thing is there's always gonna be a little bit of nervousness there, and that just know that that makes you realize that, 1, you're human, and 2, that you have that component in performance too, that you need to be able to give a good speech or talk to someone, that you're not just you're taking it seriously, basically. So, networking, reaching out to people, doing it scared, like public speaking, just saying yes to all the challenges, saying yes to everything. Yeah, those are probably the top 3 things I would say to those within the field wanting to get into the field or struggling with just trying to find jobs, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. Obviously, the job market's always insane. It's always applying for a job is always the worst because you're so excited about it, and the next thing you know, the worst is when you don't even hear a response from the company, and you're like, man, like I just like went totally missing. Like, did I even click the submit button on the application? Like, what's going on? But to your point, though, I mean, networking's been something where when I first heard about people talking about it, I was like, oh, they're just saying that because they just like talking to people, blah 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 blah. But come to find out, it's been so impactful for myself being able to have conversations with individuals like you, and being able to learn more about yourself, and not just have one simple conversation and keep it at that, but actually have multiple, and being able to see how we can both kind of mutually help each other in respected fields, stuff like that. I always think stuff like that is very important. And to your point about public speaking, I used to completely hate it. I used to hate being on the phone with people, like whatsoever. I remember telling myself, like, on calls, I'd literally be like, all right, like I'm counting to 3 and then hitting like the accept button. Cause like if I don't, then I'm probably gonna like it's not even pick up. And now it's like I'm super eager, super happy to, jump on. And it's always a fun conversation for the most part. And if not, then I'm learning about, something about maybe how I could communicate it better. But to that point, I think you wrapped that up phenomenally there. With that being said, again, Kelsey, I can't thank you enough for your time on today. Again, too, it's always inspirational for me to hear about somebody who has their own business, right? Is almost a self-starter in that facet, and is saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to pave my own way. Super passionate about what I do and the athletes that I'm talking with. I think that's super, super awesome. For everybody listening in or tuning in today, we're also going to be adding in Kelsey's social media handles and platforms down below in the description. So feel free to check those out, whether it's, her website, social media accounts. Feel free to obviously connect with her. She posts a lot. She's, quite active on those social media handles. So feel free to give a follow, give a shout out to all of that good stuff. But with that being said, we will see you guys next week. And thank you so much again, Kelsey, for your time today.